Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. In today's video, I've got some more blue and white projects, but they have a really crisp white tone to them. And make sure you stay until the end for a really special announcement. So on my first project, this is a bottle that somebody gave me. And I first started out by painting it with Dixie Belle Slick Stick. And now I'm going back in with Rust-Oleum white chalk paint. Now that rice paper is something that I bought off of Etsy. And this is just part of it. And I wanted just a little picture of the Eiffel Tower on one side. But this bottle has some little edges on either side. And I don't want this paper to kind of roll over on those edges. So I'm being really careful with my Mod Podge to just take it right to the very edge of it. Because then later on, I'm going to be covering that little, I guess it would be called a beveled edge around each side of it. But I'm being really careful to get in between those ridges on this particular bottle. And then I go on and just lay the whole sheet on top. And then I just kind of pinch it right there and run my finger along it. And I tried to tear it, but then I realized it was going to make a mess. So I just got out my scissors and just cut it because it was a really crisp, clean edge. And I cut it off on both sides. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small trim on all four sides. And it's going to be around each little picture. So this is a redesign with Prima mold, and it's pretty old. It's just a Trimmings mold, and it's one that is just really dainty, and that's what I need, and that's the size that I need on this particular project. And so if you've not done clay and molds, you want to make sure you put cornstarch in it, and then, push it out to the edges, and then I like to run like an old gift card or credit card over it just to make it really smooth. And on this one, because it's so skinny, I just kind of rolled it out of that particular mold. And then I measure how long I need it to be. And then what I'm going to do is just take that same credit card and just kind of snip off that edge. And then I use Titebond glue, which is in the blue and the gray bottle, to put it on. Now, this was a little tricky because I had to lay the bottle in different ways just to get around all four edges of it, the different sides. So I had to wait until I knew that one was completely dry before I started the next one because I didn't want to smush the details. And right here what I'm doing is I'm just gently pressing down around the edges just to make sure that it has stuck really well. And then I like to go ahead once it's all done is to paint it, and I painted it with Rust-Oleum white just because it helps from cracking. Now I'm going to put a paint inlay on two sides of it. And it's a paint inlay from IOD. And it's some blue florals. And if I say the name, I'm not going to say it right. So I'll make sure to put it in the description box below. But it came out last year. So with the paint inlay, I've already got that one coat of paint on. So I put another coat of paint on. And it's not too not too thick and not too thin. It's just right. And I just misted that paint inlay, and then I lay it straight down into that paint. And those two paints, the paint on that paper, will then merge with the paint on the bottle. And I just press out the edges. I mist it, and then I just kind of pat it so that if there's water standing on it, I let it dry, which takes about an hour. I mist it again, wait 60 seconds, and then I pull it off very slowly. And I love the way that it turns out. And I did that on both sides. And then one of the things I like to do is sometimes you are going to have wrinkles on the paint inlay. But right afterwards, I try to take like a little brush and just rub it over those wrinkles, and it does seem to help sometimes. Now on the very last side, I'm going to use a frame and some flowers from the Veranda stamp set that came out just recently. And so I set the frame down to kind of position it, and I put that little floral stamp on top of that and put that on a thin mount. And on this one, I'm using the IOD China Blue ink. And so just make sure that I've got enough on my stamp before then I get ready to put it on it. And as I get ready to put on that bottle, I kind of hover over it just to make sure it's in the right spot, and then lay it down and don't let it move. And then I'm going to be using this little tool that I've showed you a couple times. And it's just like a little stamp press that I bought off of Amazon. And just pull it straight up. And now I'm going to be putting the little rose cluster inside of that frame. So once again, I ink it up, hover over it to get it in the right spot, use that little tool and pull it straight up. And then that way you don't have any smudges. Now I need to decorate the top of it. And on this particular mold, this is the IOD Olive Crest mold. And what I'm going to be doing on just two sides, up at the top, above where the neck of the bottle is, then I'm going to be making the little parentheses and the symmetrical parentheses, and I'm going to put them right up at the top. And then there's another mold that I use to put up above those parentheses from the IOD Fleur de Lis mold. And I kind of press it down so it will kind of sink into that little edge of that bottleneck. And then I'm going to make one more mold that I use, and it's the IOD Trimmings mold. I think it's the Trimmings I, because now there's a little ridge up at the top and down at the bottom on the actual bottle, and I'm going to be using that all around the different bottle. But I've got to fit it in between that mold that comes down the side. I hope that makes sense, but you can see what I'm doing. And then I just put that all around the edges of it. Now I'm going to make one of my bottle toppers. So I take some really thin wire and I wrap it around my finger several times to give it a little bit more strength. And then I'm going to use Amazing Casting Resin in the Fleur de Lis mold. And so it's part A and part B, equal parts. You put A in, then you put B in, and then you need to stir it right then. And then you're going to pour it in your mold, and it sets up in 10 minutes. So I'm going to be making a double-sided mold. So I put the resin in. Oh, and I have some extra resin, so I've got the frames mold off to the side because you don't want to waste that. So I poured it into one of the Fleur de Lis, and then I stick my little wire in it. And then I realize I'm just going to wipe it off, and then I kind of twist it so it's kind of sticking up. So it's easier to adjust. So in 10 minutes, it's ready. Then I get some more Amazing Casting Resin, and I'm going to pour it back into that same mold, but you don't want to pour it like all the way up to the top. And then the Fleur de Lis that's got the wire sticking out of it, I'm going to lay it right on top of it and make sure that all those pieces connect. And then I'll let it set up. And it takes just a little bit longer since you've got that mold sitting on top of it. And then it comes out, and then I've got a bottle topper that I will then kind of stick through a little cork and then put that inside of the bottle. And then with all of that trim, I thought I wanted to use like a grunge gray wax on it, but I didn't like it. So I decided to go back to something that I've done on several of my projects where I just use, I believe it's Dixie Belle Dusty Blue paint, and I just brush over all of those little trims, and then I wipe it back with the baby wipe, and then it gets that paint into the grooves of all that trim. And I just like that a lot better. But I felt like the grunge gray that I was using on the trim just made it look kind of dirty. And I use it all over the mold and even up at the top. And then because there's a little bit of extra space, I'm going to make a bow to put up at the top. And that's my little mini Bodabra. So I've got a white ribbon that goes and it kind of loops under. And then I'm just going to take some different pieces and I'm going to push it down in the middle. And that is eyelash yarn. And then that's just some white ribbon that I tuck in and I kind of loop around a couple times. And then I'm going to use some blue ribbon and put on top of that. And then finally, I'm going to be putting just a couple little strips of some of those pearls on a string that you get from Hobby Lobby in the wedding section. Once you get all those pieces in, there's a little tool that you use to just push that ribbon really down, really tight. And then that white ribbon that's just kind of looped under the machine, that's when you pull it out, pull it up, and tie. That's where you're pushing it down. Pull it up and tie some really tight knots. And then you pull it up, and then there is a beautiful bow for you. And I'll leave the strings on that white ribbon longer because I'm going to tie them around up toward the top. And then on the eyelash yarn, I don't want it to loop, so I just cut those ends of each one and then kind of fluff it out a little bit. And then I'll just tie it to the neck of the bottle. And I decide that I'm going to have the front of it on the little section that had the Eiffel Tower on it. And then I needed to do just a little bit more, so I took a button and glued it to the center of that bow. And I just think it turned out so lovely. So tell me, what do you think? So if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and become part of our family. Now let's move on. So this is just a little cabinet that I thrifted, and it has some little hooks down at the bottom you would hang the keys on, or just whatever you're going to hang on it. And so I pulled all those out, and amazingly, the white paint that I put on really covered up all of that green. Now the green is pretty, and the design I thought was fine, but that's not what I was going to use it for, so I just paint the entire piece white. Now I am going to go back and put those little hooks down at the bottom later. And then this is another part of that set of rice paper that I bought off of Etsy where you print it on your own. And I have already kind of measured it and cut it out just to put on the door. And then I put some Mod Podge on that and then push it down, and then I'll just pull it up until I work my way all the way to the end. And then just to make sure there's no wrinkles at all, I pull out like a little piece of cellophane wrap and rub over it. But with rice paper, you really do have very few wrinkles. Now up underneath, because that rice paper had a bird on it, I pulled out some molds from the primitive mold and put that at the bottom. And then I went back and put that trimmings mold up at the top. And I painted all of that, and I did that same blue on all of that trim, like I did on that bottle where I just brush it on and rub it back. And it's just a really lovely little cabinet that you could put anywhere. And I'm thinking that this might stay in my kitchen, even though my kitchen's not blue. It'll be just a good place to hang my keys. And it'll be right as I walk out the door so that, I won't have to wonder, where did I leave my keys? So what do you think about this particular cabinet? So my last project is just a pretty little frame that I've thrifted, and I put a fresh coat of paint on it, and I used Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. because now I'm going to be putting in another piece of decoupage paper, and I bought this from Decoupage Central, and I'll make sure to link that in the description box below. But I start off by cutting it because I want to make sure that I don't mess up any of those other designs. And this is just a piece of cardboard that I got off a cereal box, and I painted it white so that I would have that white background on that decoupage paper. And then I went back and, kind of pulled it away with my fingers so it would have a jagged edge. And I just put some Mod Podge onto the back of that paper. And then I laid it down on that, old piece of a cereal box and put it in the frame. And that was it. And I just think it's beautiful. And then I did go back and put gold gilding wax all along the trim just because I wanted to bring that trim out. And I thought maybe just a little bit of gold would be good. Now remember, I poured some of those frames molds before. So before I show you the picture, these are just some of the little frames mold that I made up with resin. I'm painting them with Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. And then I spray them with a clear sealer. And then I'm just going to put a couple little blue designs. And I will link those in the description box below. And I'm going to put a magnet on the back. And these will go on my refrigerator because my granddaughter, who's starting kindergarten, she loves to write me notes. And she covers my refrigerator with all sorts of notes to Grammy and Papa. So I'm always needing more magnets for her. So here are those pieces. So tell me, what do you think? And my video last week was blues as well, but these are just more white and crisp tones that you would see maybe more in a cottage setting. But I love the way they all turned out today. So in the comments below, make sure and tell me which one was your favorite today. And make sure you stay right till the end for a special announcement. So friends, once again, if you enjoyed the video, like the video and subscribe to my channel. Here's the big announcement. This is my Facebook page. I will be doing a live video this coming Saturday, June the 29th at 2 p.m. with some decoupage paper. So make sure that you go to that page this coming Saturday and meet me on a Facebook Live putting out some fall decoupage paper. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks, friends.